Get a minute to pop up. Hi, I'm coming in early because it's been quite the day and I don't know if this is going to work or not. So I've got somebody checking to see if we're going to go live. We'll just give it a minute here and see what happens. Okay, you'll need to turn down the sound. In about
Small screen.
In about 3 minutes, I'm going to start a video of all my pictures. Well, not all of them, just a handful of my pictures. I think I'm live, and I know I'm a little bit early, but we'll give it just a minute here, and then I'm going to start a video. Maybe I'll even play it twice since I'm so early. So hopefully we'll get this going here real soon. Like I said, it's been a heck of a day. I didn't even know if I'd be able to go live because my computer has been acting up. Always something. But as you see, I'm right beside my nice warm campfire, and I'm ready to tell y'all some fun stories. So I think I'm going to go ahead and start my video. It's a couple minutes long, and maybe I'll even play it twice, and then we will get started. Well, hello and good evening to everybody who has joined me beside my campfire. I hope you have your hot chocolate or beverage of choice and your s'mores with your chocolate and marshmallows and graham crackers. I'm wishing I had that right now. But yes, we have had a very, very, very cold and nasty few weeks. And today has been a beautiful day. I just walked out to check on some things and saw that most of the snow was gone. I know some of you that are watching are here in Missouri and know what I'm talking about, and some of you are not. So I'll tell you just a little bit. Starting about 2 weeks ago Sunday, we started with a freezing mist. It started early afternoon, and by late afternoon, our porch steps were extremely slick, and the next day, it just kept on coming and kept on coming. So everything was getting coated with this sheet of ice. Wasn't super thick or super heavy, but it definitely was dangerous to walk on. I pulled out my crampons and I wore them for the next 2 weeks. So I'm going to step you through a little bit of what I did during this time. And I'm not saying I was out every day, every minute, because I wasn't. But I did try to get out every day, at least for a while, and every day brought a different type of beauty. Early on, we got some cold weather along with the freezing mist, obviously. And for those of you that aren't in this local area, we have a lake called Kellogg Lake that's right outside of town. I live in Carthage, Missouri. We have a spring river, and in between the river and the lake are some little holding ponds, sludge ponds. I'm not sure what they call them. But I've gone down there before when it's been really cold and found all sorts of interesting things along the bank. So I strapped on my crampons and headed down there and found some really beautiful things. If you can look closely at this image, this is a leaf with snowflakes on it. And right in the lower right third, you can actually see the details of all the snowflakes. And to me, this is always amazing. Because there was already a coat of ice on everything, when the frost happened, the crystals held their formation. And I've tried to intentionally catch snowflakes and not have much luck. But this year, several different times, I've been able to catch the actual formations of the snowflakes. And if I were to zoom in, you'd really could see some of the beautiful crystals. And these I was taking along the ponds there at Kellogg Lake. And yes, I was down on my stomach, and yes, I was out on the ice a little bit to catch some of these, and yes, I was freezing. I have my nifty gloves where my thumb and forefinger can stick out to do the controls on my camera. And these are some more of the crystals that I found, and there was all these little stems along the bank. And I was able to, again, get down on my stomach and do some macro photography. I did have on my macro lens. For those of you that camera people, I use a 100 millimeter macro lens. I shoot a Canon 5DSR, which is a 50 megapixel camera, so it really allows me to get the details. So I spent a lot of time crawling around on my stomach with that camera. I did not use a tripod. It really wasn't conducive because you need to be down on the ground. But I was quite cold by the time this was all done. And the freezing mist then continued on. So I came back later to the same ponds. And this year, I have purchased, actually last November, I purchased a drone. And I got a DJI Mini 2 drone, which was brand new out. It had only been out a couple of weeks. And what I wanted to do with this was just sort of help promote my photography, tell a little bit more of the story, because I'm all about the story. And I have found that I've really enjoyed it. I've been out a lot, and I know some of you have seen some of my video. I haven't taken it out a lot in the snow and the ice, and I know it's really hard on it when it's really cold, but of course I had to pull it out. And this is a photo of the ponds from about little shy of 400 feet above them. And the ice formations, if you can see them, were just absolutely phenomenal. And then I love the frosty trees and everything. And every time I take the drone up, I get pretty excited, especially when I can get those up high shots. But yes, these were the ponds that I was walking all the way around and laying on my stomach taking pictures of. And I think you probably saw a little bit of that in the video too. And then I also went over to the main lake, which is Kellogg Lake, and shot some pictures there too. And the lake changed so much initially. Yes, Tyler, I also took pictures over the courthouse. But anyway, I went out several different times. And this day, there was blowing snow. And I've shared some of my video, and I'll play it again at the end of me taking the drone out over top of it. But you could see the snow blowing and drifting. And it was just fabulous. As the week went along and we had severe cold weather, there were actually people walking out on the lake. And for those of you who know, there's a little island out in the middle. And I did see people walk all the way out there. There's no chance I was going to do that. But I found the lake fascinating with the way the snow blew, and there were cracks in the snow and such. So that was a lot of fun. And again, this is over the span of 2 weeks. So pretty much every morning I was going out, and during the ice, I even went out some in the afternoon because on Mondays and Tuesdays, my gallery, my studio is closed, so that I can go out and do that. So I ventured forth whenever I could. I was still making it into work most every day, but I was definitely having fun. And I will talk about this tree a little bit more at the end, but this tree was forming, this is on Spring River, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about this. This is down from the dam on Spring River, and I really did not know much about the dam and why it was there. So I did a little reading. It said the dam was erected northeast of Carthage in 1875, and it provided water power to mills and other industries through a mile-long mill race, which fed into a industrial basin in North Main Street. I had no clue when this dam was built. A lot of times there's not even water going over the dam. There definitely was at this time, and this was on the bottom side of the dam, and it's not a tall dam. I don't know, I'm not good at heights, maybe 4 to 6 feet, but the water was splashing so much and it was freezing on this tree, and I just absolutely found it amazing. But speaking of a little bit of the history, I also found out a little bit of the history of, I can find it here. I wrote it down because I knew I wouldn't be able to remember, about Kellogg Lake. After World War II, the Carthage Sportsman Protective League, which was a local wildlife and conservation organization that organized in 1918, they'd been looking for a suitable site for a fishing lake. And while they were doing the construction of US Highway 66, there was 28 acres that were part of the Kellogg farm that looked like it might be available. And so there was excavation for fill for the new road. So they were hoping that the lake would fill itself up, but it didn't. They ended up spending about $7,000 for the construction of dams and the dikes and everything like that. And there was a severe drought, I guess, in 53 and 54 that caused the league to have to purchase and install a pump to actually fill the lake. But I thought that was interesting. They've stocked it with fish, and I know there's been triathlons on it. I know they have kid fishing days. But anyway, just a little bit of a history as before I go on. But anyway, back to my adventures with my camera. I would try to get out every morning early. And one severe cold morning, I saw something that I'd never seen before. I see the herons all the time up and down the river, and I see the geese, but I'd never seen them huddled together. And I just thought this was a really fun shot. They didn't seem to have any problem with each other being near each other. And this was before the river froze over. And the river did freeze over, not completely, but there were sections that the full width was frozen over, and I'm sure it all depended on the current. And eventually those geese got out of the water, and I found them all, maybe about 100 of them lined along the edge of the river, all huddled up. But on this day, they were out in the river. But then the river was freezing over more and more. Every day that went by, we got down to about minus 16, I think. One morning I got out, it was minus 15 by the time I got out. And yes, it was very cold. At least on that day, there was not near as much, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. I was reading some notes on some things, but yes, the cold didn't grate on drones. But anyway, the river had gotten wide, narrower and narrower, but down around the dam, there was these floating, to me, I called them floating snow, where there had been ice formations and then the snow came down on it. And we're again back at that same spot where that interesting tree was, which we'll come back to. But you can see in the background the dam, and the water was gushing through this section of the river. But just another 100 yards up, it was completely snow and ice covered. Definitely would not have been walking out on it. We ended up getting about, I don't know, 10 to 12 inches of snow since we started out with a lot of drifting and really strong wind up until this day. I don't know how much snow we actually had, but finally when it let up a little bit, I took off in the car and went, one of my favorite drives is Harmony Road. And if you keep driving on out, and I'm not good about directions, but it's east of town, the road eventually turns to just a dirt gravel road. And there's some springs that are through there. And I found this little fella in the springs. And I ended up watching him, and I don't know if it was a mate or what, but watched them for about 15 minutes or so. And I didn't know what type bird it was. I've since found out that he is what's called a Wilson snipe. Now, I know a lot of y'all probably did snipe hunts as kids. I know that in Scouts that was a big thing, and we all joked about it. There never really was a thing as a snipe. Well, it turns out there really are snipes. The Wilson snipes are not made up. They're plump, long-billed birds, and they're one of the most widespread birds in North America. And because of the coloration, they can be hard to see. And honestly, if I hadn't seen them fly, I might not have realized that they were alongside of this road. They feed by burying their bills deep down into soft, wet soil, which I saw them doing. They were going after where the green stuff was, and they would come up with insects, larvae, worms, and other prey. And the picture I just showed, he did have a little something in his beak. I'm not sure what it was, but he kept coming up with things out of this water. And it was a sort of a spring fed. I assume the water probably was a little bit warmer. But it was a lot of fun to see him go fishing. He was on one side of the road, and then he hopped over onto the other side of the road. But that was a lot of fun to be able to. I had no expectations of seeing wildlife. I was out on the drive. I was just looking for beautiful snow things. And I definitely took some of those pictures with the winding creek and the snow along the way. But this was my fun for the day. I had mentioned the floating snow earlier, and this is in the river again. And I love the ice formations and the snow and how the flows work with them. I spent a lot of time taking pictures both from above and below of these formations. I just find them pretty fascinating. And then as things were winding down, I was getting sort of sad. I wasn't going to be sad about not getting out in the cold anymore because I really am not a fan of the cold. I wore lots of layers. I had on long johns. I had on quilted pants. I had on wool socks, multiple jackets with hoods and such. But the beauty was just amazing, and I always enjoy the snow. So I was getting a little sad thinking this is all over. And I knew the days were starting to warm up, and I went out one morning, and I was going to go hit the coffee shop, and I saw a little bit of color in the sky. I thought, well, I'll run over to Kellogg Lake. Again, it's a nice local place, and see if I can catch any sunrise pictures. And I got over the lake, and there was a little bit of color. It's not at the perfect angle. Obviously, the lake was totally frozen over with snow, so it picked up a little bit of color, but it was just okay. But I'd noticed as I was driving around that the trees were all glistening. Apparently, we had some freezing fog over the night that coated everything in air, in ice. And I found that really surprising. The temperature to have freezing fog, the temperature has to be below freezing, and the water drops in the fog becomes super cooled. And then if they touch something that's really, really cold, then it adheres and forms the ice. So the trees all through, I noticed it a little bit as I was heading out of town, but especially out at the park, were just absolutely beautiful. So we've got the sunrise coming up with the glow, and then we've got the trees all covered in ice. We've got the shores all covered in snow. Now, the river already had started melting, There was still some snow along the edges, but I found it the prettiest of all the days. Let's see if I can get to those pictures. And actually, I skipped a day, so I'll come back to it. But this is the beauty that I found. This picture, the sun was rising up through the trees. There was lots and lots of steam on the water, and the trees were glistening, and just made for a beautiful, beautiful image. This is one of my favorite shots. As you're looking upriver, and you can really see in the distance the steam rising, and it was rising up probably 20, 30 feet. It was almost like not really a funnel cloud, but it was a wall of steam that was rising up in the distance. And then, of course, getting the beautiful glow through through the trees and such. So you can see in this section of the river, it had pretty thawed out, but it was just absolutely beautiful. There is another section of, if I can get this picture back, there's another section of Spring River that I actually went to the day before, and I had forgotten that. And I don't want to run too long, so I'm just going to do a little bit more. But the Spring River curves back behind another part of town. And I went the morning before out to it for the sunrise. And this is the view I got to see. Again, it was probably about the same time in the morning. The sun had risen up a little bit, but the colors were just absolutely beautiful. This is one of the most tranquil pictures. You can just sit and look at it all day long. This is another view. I always get excited when I can capture a sunburst. And this was just maybe 10 feet different position from the other one. And when you're out taking photos, it's amazing how just steps in one direction or another can make for such a different picture. And see, here was this picture. And you can see that sycamore. It's a favorite sycamore of mine hanging out over the river. And here's just a view 10 feet away where I was able to catch the sunburst, and the color and everything was just a little bit different. So for those of you photographers, remember that, to always check out the different directions. Then, again, weather's warming up, snow's melting, and my husband and I decided to take our 2 pup dogs out to play in the snow. We've got one that's just about, I don't know, year old or so, and he loves to play in the snow. Now, he didn't like the really, really cold snow, but he was ready to romp and play once it was getting warmer. So we took him out to a local prairie and just let him romp in the snow. And our other dog is very old, and she just plodded along, but she enjoyed being out too. And some people pulled into the same area we were, and they pulled out their camera and were looking up in the trees, and I'm thinking, what are they taking pictures of? Well, we looked up in the tree, and there was a bald eagle. I don't know if he had been there the whole time we'd been out romping and playing, but he might have been. So we decided we'd do just a big loop around and come back. I didn't want to walk toward him with other people photographing him and see if maybe he would still be there. So we drove up the road, and pretty quickly we saw thousands of snow geese flying over. There were several different flocks, and they broke apart. And we tried to figure out, can we follow this flock? No, and he'd gotten too far off the road, and we curved on around like we were going to loop back around. And there were more snow geese. And what they would do is they would all land in these fields and start eating. And then as soon as we get close, whether it was in the car or me hopping out of the car and trying to run up a hill after them, they would take off en masse. I mean, just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them taking off. And then they'd fly sometimes a short distance, sometimes a further distance away, and land back down. And so we were able to pull across the road. I'm going to show you just a few pictures from that episode. It's just a little slideshow of the snow geese. I took lots of pictures, but I wanted to share a few. This is where I was fortunate in that they flew over top of us. I hopped out of the car. This is where they were on the other side of a hill, and they'd gone down in the field and were feeding, and as I got close, they all took off. And this is just a small, small, small portion of all the snow geese we were seeing. And it was really nice. I was able to get some nice, sharp pictures of them flying over top. And I learned something new about snow geese, and I'm going to read this to you. It says that because some of the snow geese were white with the black tips, some were all dark with a dark head, and some were dark with a white head. And I didn't have a clue whether it was male or female. But apparently, there's a blue morph snow geese, and he's the dark snow geese, and he's controlled by a single gene. So obviously, the dark is dominant over the white. So if a dark goose mates with a white goose, then the offspring will probably be dark. He might have a white head or white stomach. If a white mates with a white, he's going to have white. But every once in a while, when a dark mates with a dark, he'll end up with a white. So I don't know. I had no clue. We thought at first it was maybe a mixture of different types of geese, but they were all snow geese. Just some of them were blue morph snow geese. So I learned something new on that. But we probably, I don't know, spent 30, 40 minutes chasing them around and getting lots of pictures. I'm going to wrap up with just one more thing. And then for those of you that came in late, I'm going to play the video one more time just at the very end. If you have any questions, I am sort of getting posts. I've got my husband over here too with Facebook. I can't reply. The things pop up, but I can't reply. So he's over here helping me out. But this one tree was down below the dam, and I watched it over the span of 2 weeks. And these are just a few of the pictures. Again, I didn't want to go on too long. But just recently, I heard John Snell do do a program on, and he's a Kentucky photographer, but do a program on why do I go back to the same places and how do I photograph the same places. And this was sort of a short term along that line, because every single time I went back, it looked totally different. It started out with just ice, and then there was snow on the ice, and then there was lots of snow where you couldn't see the ice, and then it started backing off again. And I'm going to show you just a few of the pictures here. This is the area where the tree was. I've got them out of order. This was the snow on top of ice. There had already been the ice formations, and this is where we just started getting the snow. Now, this was after the freezing fog. And again, it looks like a totally different tree because all the brush around it then had ice on it. And there it is a little bit closer up. And I'm hoping, I think I might have messed up and don't have the main picture that was just, oh, there it is, with just the ice. And this was at the very beginning of when we were first started having the really cold. So these are all the same trees, same location, but a totally different look. So as you can tell, I had lots of fun the last few weeks. I had to be inventive because I didn't want to drive far and look at things differently every time I went out, but the weather really helped with that because every day was so different. We went from ice to snow, then back to freezing fog. But I hope you've enjoyed sort of taking an adventure with me, and I know it's hard to make yourself get out in the cold, but there's so much beauty out there to have, and I'm really, really glad that I did. I saw some things that here in Missouri, we just don't get to see very often. I think this is more snow and ice than we've had, I don't know, maybe in the last 10 years, definitely more cold. I think we set lots of records. And I know there's lots of part of the country, Texas, and I know Kentucky got some, Tennessee. So we're not in it alone. It's been quite interesting. Now I hear we're expecting snow again next week, but I think tomorrow we're supposed to be up to 50. So I might get out and do a different type of photography. But I appreciate all of you joining me. I am going to end with my video again. Again, it's not all my pictures, but it's a little more of a sampling and a little bit of other video mixed in if you didn't get to see it at the beginning. If you have any questions, get hold of me. I do have if you go to coralmartin.com, go to my blog. I've got some more pictures, and I also we'll put a link in this a little later of how you can get to all these pictures, or a lot of them. I haven't gotten them all uploaded to see them on my website. Of course, you can always order them if you like. I can do them on metal, canvas, whatever. But anyway, I'm so glad you joined me with the stories around the campfire. I appreciate each one of you taking part of your evening to do that. And I am going to play my video again if you want to stay on. And if you have any questions, just go ahead and drop them in the chat below. Thank you so much for joining me, and stay warm and enjoy your hot chocolate. Well, I'm not going to play it anymore, but thank you all for joining me. I will be posting this video so that you can come back and look at it later, and try to get it up on Instagram maybe too. So thank you all for joining me. It makes it a lot of fun when I have some interaction with people too. And I'll be back in a couple of weeks with more stories around the campfire. Thanks all.